I am the good shepherd and know my sheep and am known of mine. He says, my sheep hear my voice and I know them. What does that say? And they follow me. Why is this important? Well, you see, Jesus is moving here from the holy to the most holy. God's people are at that time in the holy place. And when he says, my sheep know my voice and they follow me, he's asking his people to follow him. You know, I live in a rural area in South Africa where we have sheep farmers. And when the farmers are moving their sheep from one area or one camp to another camp, they don't tend to use the same type of facilitation to get the sheep from this camp to the next time as they did at the time of Christ. Today, you'll see them whistling and throwing stones near the sheep to get them to come in, or shouting, and some even use whips, those long whips. You know? Some people might have a car driving behind them to make sure that you've got people. And the shepherds are not shepherds, but more herders, trying to keep the flock together and driving them from behind. But what Jesus is speaking about is a different kind of shepherd. And I want to show you a video clip. I want you to understand what Jesus is speaking about. When in Jesus' day they had the shepherds with the sheep, each of those sheep knew the sound of the shepherd. Some of them played a musical instrument, some of them spoke to the sheep, and these shepherds would get together around a watering trough. Imagine 10 shepherds with 50 sheep each. You're talking about 500 different sheep from 10 different shepherds. And they're all drinking and eating grass together, and there's no way to know the difference. What happens is the shepherd then turns, walks away from the sheep, and as he walks, he speaks or calls or plays his music instrument, and his sheep know his voice, and they follow him. What Jesus is showing you here is the parallel between the shepherd and his sheep in Jesus' time and Jesus and his sheep today. And look at this video, it might even make it clearer.
That's what I want. Yeah. Hey, shepherd in front.
I want to find out, I want to make sure that when they do the audio for these DVDs, they make it nice and loud, because I want you to hear how that shepherd is speaking to his sheep. It's the most beautiful sound. You hear the bells ringing, and here you see the shepherd walking slowly away from his sheep, and the sheep following him. And as he's walking, I'm going to play it for you again. Watch the sheep nearest the camera and see how he scuttles in again.
That's what I want. Yeah. Hey, shepherd in front.
Isn't that just beautiful? Imagine this shepherd walking. And as he walks and he goes, yeah, and he does his sounds, so the sheep scuttle in behind him. Absolutely wonderful. That's the image that Jesus is trying to portray when he says, my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. It's about identifying the voice of Christ and being able to say, I belong to Jesus. I don't belong amongst the other shepherds, because there will be other shepherds, there will be other sheep. I want to listen to the voice of my Savior. So let's take that image, Jesus moving from the holy to the most holy, saying, come, my sheep, let's move to the next camp. What happened in 1844? Well, the question is quite easily answered. Go onto the internet and type in, go to Google or Yahoo search or whatever, and type in great disappointment or the great disappointment. What you'll find there is information of certain events that transpired in 1844. In 1844, there was a movement that was started by a gentleman by the name of Miller. This gentleman had, it was an amazing story. Go and read up about it. This William Miller had got to a point in his life where he was studying the Bible. And he made a decision to read the Bible and not move to the next verse until he understood that verse. So he was going painstakingly through the Bible, making sure that every verse coincides with the next verse. I mean, most of us, we take the Bible and we go, and we just read. But this wasn't, he was a dedicated servant of God, and he decided he was going to read the Bible. And he started Genesis 1, and he was going to read the whole Bible and compare Genesis 1 with the rest of the Bible. And then Genesis 1 verse 2, and then Genesis 1 verse 3. And so he moved through the Bible. He got to a very interesting text. In fact, one that we've just read just now from Daniel 9, I beg your pardon, from Daniel 8, where he speaks about unto 2,300 days. Then will the sanctuary be cleansed. And as William Miller was reading, and he got to 2,300 days, and he said, what does this mean? And he put his bookmark there. He started to read up and down. Like it says in Isaiah 28, it says, if you want to understand the Bible, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. He started to do that search. And he started to take the Bible and say, well, how does this 2,300 days fit into Bible prophecy? And he was the one that uncovered the amazing parallels of the 2,300 days being 2,300 years. And he started to calculate these dates. And he saw, without a shadow of a doubt, that started in 457 BC. And he calculated it out, and he worked it out, that the date was 1843. He worked out that the 2,300 year period would end in 1843. Now, he tried to understand, what does it mean unto 2,300 days, then will the sanctuary be cleansed? And by his understanding, he said, well, that must mean that the Lord is going to cleanse the earth. In other words, the sanctuary of man. The Lord's going to cleanse the earth. And then he worked out the date to 1843. And he said, does that mean that the Lord's coming in 1843? Wow, that's incredible. So the Lord's coming in 1843? Well, best we tell people. And he actually asked the Lord, please don't let me preach this. But the conviction became so powerful, he eventually started preaching it. And wherever he went, it was like lighting fires. People started to realize this is a message of truth. And they tried to disprove the Bible prophecies, and they tried to prove that 457 BC wasn't the right date. And so they moved through the Bible studies. And they realized that the Lord is coming back to fetch his people in 1843. What do you think happened? Nothing. It was very embarrassing, you can imagine. They've got all the prophecies lined up, they've got everything, and then nothing happened. So instead of saying, why did God change his mind? They said, what have we misunderstood? There must be something we've misunderstood here. They went back to the prophecy and they studied it again and they recalculated it again. And you know what they realized? They realized there's no 0 year. So BC, before Christ, is -5, -4, etc. Anno Domini, after the birth of Christ, is 1, 2, 3. And it doesn't go -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. There's no 0 year. So it goes -3, -2, -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So when they recalibrated their formula, the date moved from 1843 to 1844. And they realized, wow, that's amazing. We've got it. We've got the date wrong. That's okay. So then they started preaching again, and this time the conviction was so powerful that people all over the world couldn't find no fault with his explanation of prophecy. And they even specified the date. They came down to the conclusion that October 22nd was the date when Jesus was coming to fetch his people on earth, and he would cleanse this earthly sanctuary from sin. You know, people gave up their cars, they gave up their houses, they gave up their life insurance,